My name is Thomas Clark, and welcome to the Takeoff Podcast, where myself and guests help equip you to bring the peace of God to the place you live, work, learn, and play, all for His glory. Every problem is a discipleship problem. Being a disciple of Christ does not guarantee that we will not have problems. It does, however, give us the tools to face the challenges of life that come our way. My worldview is that Christ transforms culture, and He does it through His followers. The goal of Takeoff is to equip you for movemental thinking when it comes to making disciples. Welcome to Season 3. In this season, we will cover power, authority, how to overcome outrage, and we will discuss the robust gospel. Okay, let's get into it. In this episode, we're talking about power. What is it? Who has it? What do we do with it? And how does using this information regarding power help us as disciple makers? Well, if we're going to have a disciple-making movement, it is important to let others know that they can participate in ways that are contextually relevant. There's no way any of us can do this by ourselves. Some people often quote 1 Peter 2:9, where we talk about the priesthood of all believers, but yet they don't let all believers participate beyond some specific and sometimes even limited duties in a building. And this is not to criticize anyone, but it's a fact. It is a fact. Yet Jesus had everyone around him wanting to share what he said. Sometimes they didn't even like him, yet they were sharing what he said. Too many times people today have others feeling intimidated and thinking they cannot do it like us, so they often don't do anything at all. This is one reason why we must lower the power distance and then share the power. See, power is not necessarily good or bad as much as high and low. Power is seen when we influence or control the behavior of others. Again, power is high or power is low. So some people have high power, others have low power. Those with the high power are the only ones who can lower the power. For example, doctors and judges, police officers, even pastors often have high power. And then those who are not in those offices, yet they engage with people who are doctors or lawyers or judges or even pastors, often refer to them by a title because of the power distance. It is up to those who have the power, though, to lower the power distance and to even share the power so that others can know that they can do great things. Maybe they can't do it like you can do it, like the person with power can do it, but they can do great things also. So now the question we have to ask is what is power? Power is influence. And authority is the right granted to exercise power. Again, the person with the power has the influence. And then that person, if it's you or someone else, has the authority to grant out someone else the ability to exercise power. Brian Howell and Janelle Paris defined the three categories of power in their book Introducing Cultural Anthropology, a Christian Perspective. The first is called coercive power. I'm going to read a direct quote from their book. Coercive power refers to the use of force, legitimate or illegitimate. Remember, power is not necessarily good or bad, it's high or low, by individuals or groups. So it's that legitimate or illegitimate by individual groups. A common understanding of coercion is a scenario in which an individual uses force illegitimately. A bully demands lunch money, or a robber steals a wallet at gunpoint. Those are examples of coercive power, but coercion occurs on a larger scale as well. One state may send its army to control the population of another state. That is a dramatic example of coercive power. And I'm not being political, but we see this happening right now. These examples, insofar as they may be seen as wrong or are not approved by most people in the society, would be considered illegitimate, not having the support of cultural norms, because normally you would not just use coercive power if you're using it illegitimately. The second form of power that they talk about is called persuasive power. Again, I'm reading a direct quote from their book. Persuasive power involves the use of words, relationships, and actions that influence others. So again, you're persuading to influence someone else to do something or not do something. That is persuasive power. It's illegitimate or it's legitimate use of power doing it that way. But then they talk about hegemonic power. And again, how they define it is hegemony or hegemonic power is the control or domination. A hegemony may be literal. For example, the control of the National Socialists, the Nazis in Germany in the 1930s, could be described as a political and military hegemony. In anthropology, however, hegemonic power or hegemony refers to the dominance of ideas or culture, such that imbalances of power or other inequalities are maintained. Again, those are some of the three forms of power. One of the wrong uses of power is when people gossip. Again, it is not necessarily bad or good. It's high and low. It's illegitimate or it's legitimate. Gossip is an illegitimate use of power. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 20, God has Paul say this: I'm afraid that when I come, you will not be what I want you to be, and I would not be what you want me to be. I'm afraid that among you there may be arguing, jealousy, anger, selfish fighting, evil talk, gossip, pride, and confusion. Gossip is often a means of social control, a negative sanction that is used to control other people's behavior. Usually, the person who is spreading gossip or gossiping actually has poor motivation and wants to undermine the social status, reputation, or the humanity of others. Now, that's not the same as when you have to rebuke or we have to encourage someone to do the right thing. That's not gossiping. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1 through 5 talks about that. In fact, we're encouraged to speak the truth in love. And sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. And sometimes we have to use our power or authority in a legitimate way that makes other people uncomfortable as we share the truth in love. And so it may seem like you're talking about others, but you're really not if the intent is to correct behavior and not just talk about the behavior. Again, are you using authority and power for resolution or just to perpetuate or continue a conversation? That's the difference. Jesus amazed people as he exercised authority in his teaching and preaching. The people in his day only recognized authority by those who were religious leaders and had certain training. Jesus was neither. Yet he spoke as if people should recognize and they should accept his power. Matter of fact, he did that in Luke chapter 7, verse 36 through 50, while at the home of a Pharisee, and a woman came and anointed his feet with her tears and expensive perfume. The Pharisee named Simon, who invited Jesus to his house, was inwardly critical of both Jesus and the woman. But then Jesus openly used his authority as he told the story about two people who owed money to a banker. One owed 500 coins, the other owed 50 coins. The banker forgave both of them. Jesus asked Simon, the Pharisee, who would love the banker more? The Pharisee replied, it would be the one who owed the most. Jesus said, yes. And then he explained that the woman had many sins and was forgiven, and she expressed her love because of that. He then told the woman her sins were forgiven, and the people were amazed that even he could forgive sins. He used his power legitimately. He lowered the power distance between him and that woman and allowed her to be in a position that she normally wouldn't have been in, even to touch him, where the Pharisee had a high power distance and wanted to maintain the high power distance and illegitimately use it to keep her away even from the master. But Jesus also did this with spirits in Luke chapter 4, verses 31 through 37. He lived within the local culture, but knew how to disrupt fundamental elements of it, like power and authority. When he cast out the demon, and also previously said, set Simon straight, Jesus showed people how to include God in their understanding and in their daily lives. Let me read Luke chapter 4, verse 31 through 37. Jesus went to Capernaum, a city in Galilee, and on the Sabbath day he taught the people. They were amazed at his teaching because he spoke with authority. In the synagogue, a man who had within him an evil spirit shouted in a loud voice, Jesus of Nazareth, what do you want with us? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, God's Holy One. Jesus commanded the evil spirit, be quiet, come out of the man. The evil spirit threw the man down to the ground before or in front of all the people and then left the man without hurting him. The people were amazed and said to each other, what does this mean? With authority and power, he commands evil spirits and they come out. And so the news of Jesus spread to every place in the whole area. Howell and Parrish, you all, in their book, talk about that previous passage from Luke chapter 7 by saying at the beginning of the passage, Jesus amazed people by teaching with authority. Authority is the right granted to exercise power. And in his day, Jews recognized the authority of certain religious officials who were trained and sat in official roles or get high power distance. Jesus, however, spoke as if people ought to recognize and accept his power, though he did not have an official religious role, which means he was lowering the power distance between himself and others. Remember, power is the ability to influence others, and Jesus demonstrated his ability to influence even demons in the supernatural realm, which was a legitimate use of his power. I'm saying all of this because all of us have realms of life in which we have influence and power. All of us do. The key, though, for followers of Christ is to see how can we include God as we exercise the power and begin sharing it with other individuals. How can we include him in this? How can we lower the power distance, use it legitimately to help other people see him through us for who he is and how he wants them to be involved and use the power and authority he's given to them? This is the key, you all, and the objective if we're going to represent God and invade the world with salvation, discipleship, and nurturing. I want to thank you for listening. And I encourage you to consider supporting the work we're doing to help equip people to bring the peace of God in the places they live, work, learn, and play by planting the gospel. As the gospel is planted, disciples rise. As disciples rise, the church organically emerges in those same places. I began this podcast with the intent of helping equip people to have authentic relationships that will help bring the peace of God to the place they live, work, learn, and play, all for his glory. And your generosity by supporting or even becoming a partner to what we're doing helps me do that, as well as bring on guests who can assist in both adding to your toolkit and also sharpening the tools you already have. I want to challenge you to create an I will statement for what you're going to do today based on what the Lord has said to you as you engaged. So I will blank, fill in the blank. What are you going to do? Start or stop? And then also, who are you going to share it with? Again, if we're going to be disciple makers, it's all about obedience-based learning. And as you receive it, you go and live it. So your I will statement, I will blank, start or stop, and whatever it is God said to you, and who are you going to share it with? And I want to encourage you to live it out, but then drop me a note. Show some love. Drop a note and say, this is my I will statement. This is what I'm sharing it with. I would love to see it, engage with what you've written, but then others can see it as well, perhaps be encouraged, enthused, or inspired by it. And if by chance you want to know more about discipleship, learn more about this power and what we talked about today and how you can be a disciple of Christ, you can text the word disciple to 708-584-1128. Follow the prompts, and within 24 hours, someone will call you to talk to you about your decision. Thank you so much. And until next time, God bless you.